So it's good to wait a couple of minutes. We have more guests coming, and people, Sunday people relax, and it should be a relaxing day because we have a full week ahead of us, activities, work, studies, and so forth. Well, actually, March break is just finished, but we none of us are high school students anymore, right? We're past that part. Yeah, unfortunately, that's right. What a good time in our lives. We thought it would be, can hardly wait to graduate, but now I miss my high school days. I miss my high school days for sure. Anyway, welcome to everyone again. I'm glad you made it. Those who arrived after I greeted the audience for the first time, we're glad that you're here, and I'm sure we have a beautiful program to be presented to you, and to all of us are going to be benefiting from it. We have Dr. Break back with us. He was our speaker for Wednesday and Thursday, when on Wednesday he shared with us preparing for transformation, thought about the importance of having a purpose in life. And then an interesting topic as he presented to us on Thursday, lovify your life. How can we, be kind and have at the same time, love is a two-way street. We give and we receive. And then Friday evening, Robert presented to us the Mind Cure, very powerful message as well. And yesterday morning, Robert again presented to us Vitamin G. Vitamin G stands for gratitude, an attitude of gratitude. That's a blessing for everyone, and everyone is happier when we have a attitude of gratitude, not only to impart but also to receive. We see gratitude is also a two-way road. And also yesterday evening, that Robert did in the morning, Vitamin G. Yesterday evening, Ron, one of our good speakers, he presented to us the 8 doctors, amazing, the natural doctors that God has given to us in nature, not the natural, in nature that he has given to us. You remember that? Nutrition, new start, nutrition, and then E, exercise, and W, water, and then S, sunlight, sunshine or sun, and then T, temperance. I learned how can I say, not introduction, the best definition of temperance that I heard from, someone that I have never forgotten. Nothing in excess. Nothing lacking, nothing in excess. Balance, right there, temperance. And then A stands for air. And R, rest. And T, trust in God. Trusting God, the natural remedies, the 8 doctors. And tonight we'll be blessed by Dr. Break again presenting, this morning, this afternoon, for those who are here, we had a culinary medicine for stress and mental health with cooking class. That was Karen Lynch. She presented one of our speakers as well from Wildwood Health Institute, together with Ron. They also, for Light, the Lay Institute for Global Health Training, based in the U.S., in Georgia. And also Robert is chaplain at Wildwood Health Institute. So those are 3 guests coming from the U.S. And Dr. Break, he is from Canada. He's from Canada. And we served together for 13 years in executive positions in the office. Now he is retired. When one never retires, one gets retread, right? That a purpose in life, retread. And he's here with us. I'll introduce Pastor Break a little bit in a few more minutes before he speaks. But this evening, we are going to be starting with a powerful song that we've been singing every evening. I believe in the power of music. As I mentioned to you, music still plays a major role in my life. Music was the avenue that God used to touch my heart and give me sense of purpose, a sense of purpose in life. I was a DJ. Wow, DJ. Can you see? I let my hair I kind of miss it today, to be honest with you. My hair was like this, about the size of yours. Sharon, right? Well, okay, sorry. Oh, I thought she was your daughter, Sister Catherine. No, she's your daughter. Oh, look at that. Wow. You're so young to have a daughter. And you're also both young. Both of you are young like this. Wow, good family, beautiful family. Anyway, but I had a hair more or less like hers. I'm not kidding. I kind of miss it today, so it's getting. But anyway, lo and behold, we're going to be singing the theme song which is entitled, the title of that song, It Took a Miracle. As you pay a little bit of attention in the lyrics, you see how beautiful that song is. Well, song, theme song. Thank you. We have the ladies or the praise team assigned to help us with the singing. Thank you so much.
Welcome to Richmond Church. It Took a Miracle is our theme song, so I think the words will be on the screen. My Father is omnipotent, and that you can deny. O God of might and miracles, 'tis written in the sky. It took a miracle to put the stars in place. It took a miracle to hang the world in space. But when He saved my soul, cleansed and made me whole, it took a miracle of love and grace. Though here His glory has been shown, we still can fully see the wonders of His mighty throne till take eternity. It took a miracle to put the stars in place. It took a miracle to hang the world in space. But when He saved my soul, cleansed and made me whole, it took a miracle of love and grace. The Bible tells us of His power and wisdom all way through, and every little bird and flower are testimonies too. It took a miracle to put the stars in place. It took a miracle to have the world in space. But when He saved my soul, cleansed and made me whole, it took a miracle of love and grace. Amen.
I would like to pray and ask God to bless our meeting this evening. Let's pray. Thank you, Father, for allowing us to come here. Thank you for giving us health. Thank you for giving us the desire to be a blessing to all of those around us, because we cannot become islands. We cannot become like the Dead Sea. The blessings that we receive, you have inspired us to share with others. And we pray that you continue to bless us as we have this meeting this evening, especially Dr. Brake, as he shares the beautiful message that you set in his heart to share with us out of his experience and his ministry. And we pray for everyone here this evening, Lord, all the loved ones, and keep us all safe and sound in your sight. We thank you and we praise your name in Jesus' name. Amen. We'll have the opportunity to have the health nugget at this point in time, which will be Robert Johnson. Robert is Canadian. He was born in Jamaica, but he was raised in Canada. And for those who are here for the first time, we are lending Robert to the U.S., but we're going to claim him back soon. Robert is a member. Please come forward, Robert. Robert is a member of our Richmond Church, has always been for many years. Now he's in Georgia. Somehow the sound is low, brother. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Yes, better now.
Awesome. It is nice to be here. A friend of mine, an old friend that used to live nearby, her name is Sandra. She lives in Florida, and I hadn't seen her since 2018. And so I wouldn't have even thought of mentioning that I'm in town since she doesn't live here. But she reached out to me through my sister to say that she's actually at the Vancouver airport today, and that she had like a window of time. but it had to be just, so I said, okay. So I actually got to see her and meet her 3 kids. And so I think I saw the first one when she was a baby that's 7 years old. And then, yeah, I got to see, I was like, I didn't even know you had 3 kids. And so, yeah, I got to see them. And then when I was coming to get in the car when my parents were going to pick me up, somebody called me. So I picked up the phone. I thought it was a Diane from this area, but it was a Diane that was a former guest at Wildwood. She came in 2020. She had breast cancer, and she had lots of concerns, and she was letting me know how everything is going well. Sometimes they call me pastor, and I'm not a pastor. I tell them, some of them want to, or they call me chaplain, but she calls me chap. So then I was like, so then I said, do you mind sharing, sending it with me, text it to me what you're telling me? And she said, sure. And so some of the things that she learned there, because she had a reoccurrence, but then after she went and did everything and things was good. So here is some of what she learned. In order to maintain a healthy lifestyle after cancer, you must reduce or eliminate stress from your daily life. So she was reiterating that one is a big deal. Maintain a healthy lifestyle. And one of the things I remember her saying when I was talking to her, don't say I can handle it. You know, sometimes we know we're stressed and the stress is piling up and we tell ourselves, oh, I can handle it. Like, it's okay. And she was saying, no, like, do something about the stress. Don't just say, I can live a stressful life. It's okay. And so that was that part. And then it says, maintain a healthy lifestyle by consuming fruits and vegetables in large portions. That's one of the things that they teach at Wildwood. Some people are usually hesitant. Can you eat fruits? Are you sure? Because it has sugar. You know, everything that we eat translates to glucose. But we can eat fruits. When I also went to the other lifestyle centers, they said it's okay to eat fruits, especially if you're eating it in the morning with your breakfast, and then at lunch you eat a salad, you eat your raw and vegetables. And if you do need a third meal, we encourage to do 2 meals so that it gives not only your stomach a chance to rest, but especially with cancer, if you can do what they call an intermittent fast, the longer you go without eating, that is spaced out, then there's less glucose in that sense in your system for the cancer cells to feed on. And so that would also be a benefit if you did a water fast for that. But you don't want to push. So in that sense, 2 meals a day is good. Or if you do like a light supper, if you really say, it's hard for me to eat so much in 1 meal and I need to have the third, then you can just do like a light supper, like fruits. Or you can do like a smoothie. You can do a pomegranate, walnut, and raspberry. Thank you. See, that's, you know what, Ron, this is nice. I get the benefit of sitting in the front row. This is really good.
He complains about it. Thank you for appreciating me.
Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah. And so it's really great for cancer. You don't have to do it in a smoothie. You can have each of them separate, but you can make it in a smoothie. And if you want to gain a little bit of extra weight, if your weight is low, like in my case, you can make it with coconut milk. It will add flavor, and the coconut milk will help with your weight. And so that was that part. All right, so raspberry, walnuts, and pomegranate. All right, you mix those together. Taste is good also. So have at least 5 servings of fruit daily. Sometimes I don't always think about mine in terms of serving. I do try to have 3 different fruits a day. All right, so and I have a good healthy sized portion. I'm not always measuring my portion. Sometimes I might have a bowl of fruits mixed with whatever else I eat. If I do waffles, I'll put the fruits on the waffles and so forth. That way it will sweeten it. If I do oatmeal and I don't use a sweetener, then I put the fruits in the oatmeal. If I do a granola, I put the fruits in and so forth. So whatever I'm doing, the fruits was, when for the longest time, fruits was the sweetest things that I would use. And so if you're battling with cancer and you have fruits, then if that is the sweetest thing you're having, then that's okay. All right? And then you're not really doing the other sweets unless it's a rare exception and it's a healthy sweet. All right? But it's best, especially early on, not to make any exceptions. Because when you start making exceptions, then
Go back to old habits.
yeah, you get back to the old habits and you're not counting how much exceptions you make. And people always think it's less exception than they really are doing. They usually do more and think it's less. And so that's why it's not good to do those. And so what you can't eat juice, especially with the vegetable juice. And so you don't want to do the fruit juice. When I was in Malaysia, I couldn't resist doing some tropical fruit juice, especially if it's fresh myself. But the vegetable juice, super great for cancer. All right, and so one of the reasons why you would juice is there's only so much you can eat at one time. And so the quantity of when you are juicing, you could get a lot more cabbage in, broccoli in, all your different greens, spinach, and so forth. Sometimes to add more liquid and juice to it, you can do carrots. And if you drink enough carrot juice or too much carrot juice, your color will change. But it will not be permanent, all right? When you lower it, it will go back. The carrot juice tastes very good. It's one of the juice that I would drink even if I had no health problems. I really like the taste of it. And I've drank so much carrot juice that if I buy carrot juice somewhere and it's in like a bottle or something that they package it, even if they say it's 100% carrot juice, no preservative, no anything, I can tell the difference. That's how much carrot juice I've had. I know what fresh carrot juice tastes like, and I can tell if anything else is in there. And so I had that. Fountain View blessed me, by the way. I don't know if some of you know that there's an academy, Fountain View. They do a lot of singing. They grow a lot of carrots. At Fountain View, you might find their carrots in Whole Foods and other places. They would give me these huge bags of like, maybe they're seconds. They're large, but maybe, people might not want a carrot that's crooked or something like that. And so they give me like a huge bag. And so I am very grateful that they helped me during that time. And so now, when rest is essential. Rest is essential. When we're at rest, our body cells get to repair and not be worn out. And so that's very good. So it's not only for our memory, and it also rest will help with our willpower. I'll let Dr. Brake talk about that. But the rest is where the repairs happen. And so please get your rest. And so we learned about that also yesterday. And so then it says, it is much easier to maintain health before any type of surgery rather than after surgery. And so, of course, sometimes surgery is needed, but it's best to focus on our health before because it's easier. Prevention is better than cure. But so just remember that. Surgeries alter your body function and are sometimes irreparable, depending on what it is. But feeding our bodies what is designed by the Creator to maintain its function should be our ultimate goal. All right, so I thought that was really nice, and she says she's doing the things at Wildwood, and she's still doing well. She's 58 years old, and so I just wanted to share that if somebody, that could be a blessing to someone. And then when I do the other health talk, I'll share some other things that I was doing. Now, on some cases, I'm not fully sure if this is a description or prescription. If you think it's extreme, take it as a description, not a prescription. One of the longest thing that I did a water fast. And if you're doing that, like you have intermittent fasting, that is 2 meals a day. You have a breakfast, and then let's say if I have breakfast at 7, then I don't eat lunch until 1 o'clock, and then that's it that I would eat for the day. And that's fine, that gives me enough energy, and I go. If for some reason I needed a dinner, I would maybe have like an apple or something small or whatever it is. If I'm gonna, depending if I'm gonna stay up later, of course, the longer you stay up, the more you're gonna need to eat something, right? But if I'm going to bed somewhere around 8, 9, 10 o'clock, then that's perfectly fine. I don't need anything else again, if I'm sleeping by that time. Now, I've done a water fast. What would be the benefit to a water fast? So our bodies I'm trying to think of the time. Our cancer cells like sugar. And because cancer cells like sugar, when you cut down on that, but our other foods that we eat to some degree turns into glucose and they feed on that. If you do a fast, the cancer cells, you're starving them for a period of time. And so one of the time I did a long water fast. The longest I've done in my life, I did a 10-day water fast. And so if you've seen how I am, now picture me less than this, all right? And then followed up by a 31-day juice fast. And so everything was documented. Now, in that case, I did it where I was around nutritionists and a doctor, and they were documenting things, and I'm weighing myself daily, and I'm writing down all the things. And so in that case, I'm not encouraging somebody to try that on their own, but I did that, and it was in my case, it was helpful for me. It was also helpful for me spiritually during that time, clearing your mind and so forth. And sometimes at night I would be dreaming about eating food. And so I'd be like dreaming, I'm with my family and I'm eating and it's good, and then I'll say, wake up. And so that's what happens when you're not eating for a long time. You got a lot of dreams about food. And I think for now, that's it for the health talks and trust in God. One of the things to really help to manage the stress was taking it one day at a time. You know that old song, "One day at a time, sweet Jesus"? That's all I'm asking from you. Sometimes I would have to sing that song like it's a prayer, and I would just really talk to the Lord and learn how to cast my cares on Him, knowing that He cares for me. Sometimes we think of casting our cares on God because He's big enough, He's strong enough, He has enough resources. All that is true. But the reason why the Bible says we should cast our cares upon Him is because He cares for you. Just because somebody is rich doesn't mean they want to give you their money. Yes? Just because somebody's strong doesn't mean they want to help you. But God cares for us, and yet He has all the resources to help us. So we can cast all our cares upon Him because He cares for us. Amen.
I'm going to be 64 in 15 days, but I have learned through life that we only stop learning when we are 6 foot under. Thank you. So thank you so much, Robert. And nothing touches more of the heart than a personal testimony. What Robert and I have in common that we are both cancer survivors by God's grace. Both of us. I will have the opportunity to share my testimony, but it's not today. Now this evening, I'd like to invite Dr. Brake, please. Let's welcome Dr. Brake again. I had the privilege of meeting this man on the second or third week after arriving in BC. Actually, not even that, because I went straight to Camp Hope already there. Our former president invited me to go to Camp Hope, his meeting, and I met you there. So basically speaking, I flew in on a Sunday and I met him on a Sunday. So on the first day that I arrived in BC, so to say. We developed our friendship over the years. We served in the conference office in executive positions for 13 years together. He retired, and I'm still carrying on. He's enjoying life better than I am now, just kidding. And he earned break. He has a doctorate in ministry as a pastor. Now he's doing a doctorate, PhD, and I'd like you to share a little bit more yourself, Ern. And we are eager to hear from you the message that you have prepared for us, which is the science of willpower. Why breaking unhealthy habits is so hard. give us a secret as you tell us a little bit more about your doctorate
All right.
and the book that you wrote. One of them, we're planning to have 5.
Yeah.
The first one is done.
That's
Welcome
great.
again.
Thank you, Wesley. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'll share a little bit. I'd like to know, what did I miss? I was here on Wednesday night and Thursday night, and now it's Sunday night. So could someone tell me just one sentence, what did I miss?
The food today.
No food today?
No, the food today.
The
It
food
was
today. That is
amazing.
what I missed. And you were the blame for that food, right? Yeah, okay. Very good. What else did I miss? What new insights did you get? What new encouragement did you get? Anything at all? Okay, let me ask this. Have you been encouraged? Raise your hands if you haven't. Or you have been. Okay, yeah. So let me share a little bit. You asked me to share about a PhD. There's not very many PhD programs in lifestyle medicine. And so I searched the world over, and I found a place in Paris, France, believe it or not, that gives you a PhD in lifestyle medicine. And lifestyle medicine is more to do with your habits than it is to do with pharmaceuticals. And so I'll be dealing with the kinds of things we do with our bodies, the kinds of things we put into our bodies and minds as well. So that's what I'm going to do there. The PhD should last about 3 years. I just started a few months ago. Eventually, I hope to become a health and wellness coach, as well as other kinds of things to do with helping people out. I was a pastor for 25 years, and then for 11 years worked with Pastor Wesley in the conference office in Abbotsford, and I retired 3 years ago to have some fun. So now I'm having fun, just having fun. So Pastor, don't retire because I love you too much here. So anyway, I need to talk to you about the subject tonight, because this subject tonight is perhaps the most serious. Because often we know that we should, but we don't, right? We know that we should eat carrots and broccoli and Brussels sprouts, but I hate Brussels sprouts. So how can I eat what I don't like? And I'm going to talk about that. So you just give me a chance, and I'll share with you a little bit of my own story as well. I'm going to make myself kind of a little bit vulnerable. I've actually tell the story in this book here, which I wrote, the first book of the 5 that I'd like to be able to do. And it's called the Full Power Plan, where each of the letters of Full Power represent a health principle. I'm not going to go over them too much, just very briefly at the end here today. But the word full has to do with principles of the mind. The word power is kind of like New Start. You heard about New Start, I think. Principles of mostly the body. So we put the two together to help us on the way. Today is be talking a whole lot more about the mind. Would you like to have some of that right now? Oh, a couple things. All right. How about that? You notice there's a difference? There's a difference between the two, right? How about some grains? How about some high-octane fuel? That's what this is. You are worth more than a Ferrari. I know a Ferrari can cost $1.2 million. It could have, some of them even have 9 cylinders, some have 12 cylinders. A Ferrari is a high-precision machine. Your body is like 1,000 times more high-precision machine. They would never put anything in that Ferrari except high-octane fuel. And when we put high-octane fuel, i.e. fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables out of a garden bush or a tree, then we're putting high-octane fuel into these bodies, and that's what makes us work the best. And I'm going to share some of the differences you're going to see here. Here's another picture here of high-octane fuel. Now, I just showed you some of the junk food and some of the healthy food. Now, an experiment was done to show the difference between a life of eating junk food, in other words, sugar, salt, fat, and white flour, and all of its combinations, and healthy food. In other words, things that come from a garden or a tree or a bush, like berries and stuff like that. Basically, fruits, nuts, grains, vegetables, and legumes. So we're going to show you the difference. This is an experiment that is done in Brown University in Rhode Island. And they're going to, so if you don't like to look at rats, then you can avert your gaze. But he's going to take a rat by the tail to them. One rat has been fed the equivalent of junk food. the equivalent, and when I say junk food, I mean what most people eat in North America. The SAD, Standard American Diet, all right? Hamburgers, McDonald's French fries, your milkshakes, the stuff I showed in the first picture there. And then another rat has the equivalent of eating healthy food. Now the goal of each of these rats, they're going to be dropped into a vat of kind of white water. It's water, but it looks white. I don't know why it looks white. And the goal is there's a little island in there, and rats, they swim, and they have to kind of save themselves from drowning. So watch what happens as we compare the two rats. The rat on the regular food that most people eat versus the rat on healthy food. Let's see what happens when they do that. Here he is, he's swimming around. Oh, man, look at that. He found his island, and that was 5-point-something seconds. Did that. Now, let's look at the other rat and see how he does. This is a rat that has been fed what normal people normally eat in North America. He just went right by it. It's right there. He's looking around. She's explaining this. She's the doctor. She's explaining what's going on there. Two different rats. He's still going. He's still looking around. See, what's happening here is what she was explaining was that his decision-making process there, he's finally got there. It took him, what, 30, I think I said 35 seconds? 36 seconds. He's just recording it there. So what's happening is when we eat food that is processed, high sugar, high fat, high salt, high white flour, mostly. That food affects our brain so much that it's hard to make decisions that are quickly and make you alert. And we just saw that as a microcosm of those two rats. And so, in a sense, what we're doing is we're looking at a control group and a test group. Which group are you in? Which one is there, right? You got all your lean, your greens and your beans and your grains and your fruits and nuts and then you have all the brown stuff over there. Now, which one tastes better, by the way? For most people, right, it's this stuff over here. Let's call them what they are: tasty toxins. That's what they are. They taste good, but they'll kill you, and that's our problem. Because they taste so good, we want it, but we know we don't, but yet we do. And so that's what I want to talk about here. So you have the difference there between the control group and the test group. And does anyone here know what the WFPB stands for? This is your doctor prescribing, this is Dr. Mother Nature, prescribing to you the high-octane fuel, the one that the fast rat got. Whole Food stands for, WF stands for what? Whole Foods, right? Not something extracted from natural food, but the whole food itself, the whole apple, not apple pie type of thing. And then plant-based, based on plants. That's the formula. That's the formula for optimal body-mind vitality. It's worked miracles. People will say miracles, but it's just science. It's the science of cause and effect. Let's see how we do here. This represents a blood vessel. And inside the blood vessel, we have lots of things going on. We have the red blood cells and the white blood cells and everything else happening. But watch what happens when we have the diet that the slow rat had. When we have high processed food, deep fried stuff and everything else, this is what's happening inside our blood vessels. And when that happens inside our blood vessels, cholesterol builds up, so many things can happen, something can break away and cause a clot, all that kind of stuff could go on. But what happens, our blood pressure goes up and that makes us die sooner. So many bad things can happen when we do that. And this is what it looks like inside, it's kind of like almost a cartoon picture of what it looks like. Now, so when I learned this kind of stuff, I thought, I'm a busy person, as I'm sure you are. How is it that I can have healthy food when I'm so busy? When I get up, and I'm used to get up in the morning, I don't do it now because I have nice, slow breakfasts. I'm retired, right? I can do what I want. I have breakfast for a whole half hour if I want to. but I used to have breakfast in 3 minutes, sometimes while driving. I don't recommend this. All right, don't recommend this. But here's what I did. I invented the banana hot dog. I found out that somebody had thought of it before me, but I thought of it on my own. All right, so I wanted to have fruits, nuts, and grains all in one meal that I could eat with one hand. So you get your squirrely bread from Silver Hills Bread. You go to Costco, I don't know if they still have it. You get your nut, what they do? They do, nut and seed butter, all right? Not just peanut butter, nut and seed butter, and you get one good banana, all right? And then you put it all together, put it on and that's what you do with it, all right? And here's what it looks like when you bite it, okay? There you go. That was my actual breakfast. You can drive a car while eating your breakfast, all right? Is there a policeman in here? All right? If there was, forget what you just heard there. The idea is, if you have a busy life, you can still do it. You can still, and that's what I did, and that kind of helped me out a little bit, I must say. So now, I need to address something else before we get into our topic, and that is the difference between healthy and healthier. You probably have heard and seen advertisements to say, when you take our product, it is healthier than the other thing. It's got less sugar. It's got more protein. It's got this and let's just look at that a little bit now. Think in terms of the plus 10. I can't really put the red dot on there, but you see the plus 10? That's the healthiest food, the plus 10 in the green. The least healthy food is the minus 10 in the red. So let's just put the words there if we can. They're harmful versus healthy. The least healthy foods are the most processed foods. Coca-Cola would be a minus 10. French fries would be a minus 10. Okay? Deep fried food, minus 10. Plus 10 would be what? Blueberries, apples, cabbage, stuff you grow in the garden. Stuff you grow, your beans, your peas, your apples, all right? Just whole foods, plant-based. So that's the difference. So the foods that we eat are in between there. And so let's just say that you happen to know a food to say minus 9. You love it. Tastes so good, but you know it's going to kill you. So an advertisement comes along and says, oh, we can make that by making that a minus 4. And we call that healthier. But guess what? It's not so much healthier, it's simply less harmful. So be careful when you hear about people saying this is healthier. It may not be. If it's still processed, it may be less harmful than more processed, but it's still harmful. And so we want to eat more along those. Now, a lot of us, including myself, we just love the unhealthy stuff. We just love to have that oil and the fat and the salt and the French fry, whatever, ice cream, you name it. We just pizza. We just love. I don't know about you, but most normal people just love tasty toxins. And so, but the thing is, we can't be perfect overnight. So any step you make to exchange something that's processed with something that is unprocessed is just helping you live longer, have more vitality, think quicker, faster, and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I'd like you to know. So healthier is not necessarily healthy. The healthy stuff is the unprocessed stuff, all right? The whole foods, plant-based. So now let's talk about the O of full power. The O of full power stands for, what do you see here? Omit what is harmful. That's the O. Omit what is harmful. And so let's talk about this little quote, and then we'll tell some stories. Bad habits are easy to form and hard to live with. Bad habits. Good habits are hard to form, but they're easy to live with. And as Goethe said, everything is hard before it's easy. So when we learn and we get educated on what is healthy and what is good, makes you energetic, and makes you faster, makes you think smarter, we get educated on that. It's just one step after another. But sometimes we get over that hump of hard work, and then life is a little bit easier once we do that hard work. Sometimes, my wife and I did this a few years ago. We call it a taste bud reset. We reset our taste buds because we know that our taste buds love unhealthy, tasty foods. But do you realize that taste buds take 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how old you are, to replace themselves? So let's say certainly within 3 weeks, 3 weeks from now, you'll have a brand new set of taste buds. The unfortunate part is the taste buds which connect to the pleasure centers of our brain, the pleasure centers of our brain haven't changed over that much because brain cells take a whole lot longer to replace than taste buds. But here's the point. We have about 37 trillion cells of our bodies. I didn't count. If you count, let me know tomorrow. Some estimates are between 10 trillion to 80 trillion, so I really don't know, but let's just say 37 trillion because that's what I read the most. We have 10,000 taste buds. The older we are, the less we have. That's why older people want to have more salt and more more exciting food because their taste buds aren't nearly as many. Now, here's the question. Do we sacrifice the 37 trillion cells of our bodies for the sake of entertaining 10,000 taste buds? That's the difference. That's the question that we have to have, the choice that we kind of make. I was practicing guitar with a friend of mine who's actually teaching me guitar. This was about 30 years ago. And after we finished our jamming session on guitar, we sat down in his kitchen and he pulled out a cigarette. And these are the exact words that he told me. He said, "I've never loved or hated something so much in my life as this cigarette." And he held it up in his hand like this and did this to me. And I listened to him and I could hear the agony in his voice. He says, "I love this cigarette, but I hate this cigarette." Do you know what he's getting at? Do you kind of understand it maybe a little bit? Well, here's something I kind of thought about. I don't know if he knew it, but maybe perhaps deep down he did know, but he was articulating the most powerful insight in the world. Here's what it is. Here's what it is. The insight is the battle between short-term pleasures and long-term desires. On the first night, on Wednesday night, we talked about having a purpose. You have something you want to be in your future. You have a vision of what you like to do and the wonderful person you like to be, the strong, the healthy person, and that's a long-term goal. Meanwhile, you're living today and you have this short-term desire for something that tastes really good, but it's not going to get you to that long-term goal. And that's the battle that we have. And that's the battle that I want to talk about here today, and the battle that I have fought and still am fighting. Anyone ever heard of Christina Aguilera? 20 years ago, maybe, she wrote this song, "Save Me," not from anyone else, "Save me from myself." Save me from myself. Is this you here? Which one are you going to go for? That one or that one? Some people call that a balanced diet. I don't know. I don't think so. Here she got a decision to make. She looked into her fridge. Now look at her fridge. What she's got there? She's got tomatoes. She's got oranges. She's got greens. Peppers. But look what else she's got. And look what she's got. So she has a choice. And in the short term, if you're just wanting to get the pleasures of the short term, you're going to go for the chocolate cake. But the bad news is the chocolate cake will not help you reach your long-term goals. See, that's what we want to talk about here. It works with alcohol. It works with smoking. It works with drugs, cocaine, heroin, etc. The patterns in our brain are the same. Whether it's tasty toxins that we eat in the kitchen or whether it's drugs that we shoot in our veins. The pleasure centers of our brain are affected with similar mechanisms. And I didn't know that until a few years ago because I had to examine myself a little bit, and I'll share a bit of a story. But I'll introduce it with this. This is Mary's willpower tank. Because often our very first response to education on health is, okay, I'm going to use my willpower. I'm going to eat right. and it works for how long? How long? A couple days? A couple of weeks if you're really strong, you know?
The first month of the new year?
First month of the new year.
January.
After your New Year's resolution, right? And all that. So let's examine the power of willpower. Mary gets up in the morning. She's the mother of 2 girls. She's got a husband, happily married. She gets up in the morning, and she is going to have breakfast, and she sees that donut in the fridge, or next to the fridge. I don't know where she put her donut. But she resists it. And she makes her breakfast for her girls, makes them lunch, send them on their way, and she drops her girls off at school, her husband's gone to work somewhere else. And then, now, she resisted the donut at breakfast, and then she resisted the chocolates when she walked into her office later on. Every time she resisted, there's something in the brain that depletes. There's studies that have been done, sometimes it's called ego depletion. It has to do with glucose in the system as well. That the willpower, and I'll share a little bit more about the brain on this, it's like you get a willpower tank, like a gas tank. And you use up the gas. And you're using up the willpower throughout the day. And so then throughout the day, she makes decisions, and every time we make a decision, it depletes the willpower a little bit more. And then she resisted the butter at lunch because she was trying to cut off butter in her diet. And then she resisted that donut at lunch as well. And every time she resisted, her willpower tank went down, 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 down. Now it's getting to the end of the day, and she makes her last decision before she goes home. She goes home, and now she sees that donut that she resisted before. At breakfast time, what does she do? She snaps up that donut, she sits down in front of the TV, and she has the donut. Why? What happened to Mary? Her willpower depleted. She was trying to use willpower, and it didn't work. We need to examine why that happened. It has to do with the basal ganglia in the brain. Now, there's a wonderful book that's on this and other things like it. It's written by Charles Duhigg. It's called The Power of Habit. How many of you have ever heard of The Power of Habit? Raise your hands. Okay, it's a good book. I recommend to read. There are other books as well I could recommend. But he explains this quite well, and this is explained by an article writer about it. Habits versus decisions. 2 things, habits versus decision. Habits. Our automatic behaviors, or they're automatic, you don't think about it. They're automatic behaviors traced to a part of the brain called the basal ganglia. It's a portion of the brain associated with emotions, patterns, and memories. You remember eating that food last week or last year, and in your memory it was a good experience. That memory sticks, it stays there, all right? It's in the basal ganglia. And so you see that same food again, you say, oh, I have good memories of this, right? I have good memories of these French fries because I had some like a month ago, and I just love it. Now, contrast that now with decisions. In other words, willpower. Are made in the prefrontal cortex. Right up here, we have the cerebral cortex, the prefrontal cortex. Now imagine the basal ganglia, which is kind of right in the center of the brain, versus the prefrontal cortex. When we use the prefrontal cortex to make rational decisions, to think, to plan, that uses up energy. A lot of calories, a lot of glucose gets used up for the brain to operate on making decisions. When the basal ganglia is used to have habits, it doesn't use up like hardly even 1/20th of the energy. It's just you're on autopilot. So if those habits are good habits, that is so wonderful. You can be, not be good, but you can be healthy without even trying. But if you have to make a decision for every little thing that you do and say, it's going to wear you out. So the goal is to turn those good decisions and those good behaviors into habits so we can run on autopilot. So that's the way we want to make it work. Does that make sense? Are you with me so far? Okay? So what we want to be able to do is when a behavior becomes a habit, we stop using our decision-making skills. And that's a good thing when it's a good habit. It's a bad thing when it's a bad habit, right? But we want to make it a good habit. Instead of functioning, and then instead we want to function on autopilot. So we look at all these wonderful, successful people. They are top-class athletes. Or they're wealthy, well-disciplined CEOs of corporations. Or they're wonderful educators. They are just, their life is so inspiring. And we say, wow, they have willpower. No, they have habits. We think it's willpower, but no, it's habits. They have habits. And habits are what you do when you're not really thinking, because you've thought about it in the past and you got yourself into a habit. That's what we want to be able to do. So how do we resist a bad habit? It's the first 4 principles of the full power principles. It's preparing the mind. That's why we talked on Wednesday night about having a purpose. When you have a purpose, you are more ready and stronger to resist the bad decision. I'm going to illustrate in a moment. Unleash your spirituality, or unleash healthy spirituality. Those of you who have a spiritual life, find power from that. Lovify your life. When you have social connections, you feel supported by friends, people you love, you feel like you belong to a community, they have found out that gives you lots of power to resist. I'll talk more about that in a bit. And then you have a plan, especially a plan for when you are tempted. Those are the 4 things that psychologists talk about, not in those words, mind you, but when they talk about it, it's usually one of those things, to resist a bad habit. Well, let's get into it a little bit. Here's a guy, he's got a goal. He's on the ladder. He's climbing toward his goal. Now, these little guys, let's call them, I don't know, gremlins, temptations. They're the things that are calling him to do something harmful to himself. But if it weren't for that ladder and that goal, all he would have are those temptations all around him. But because he's distracted from the temptations and attracted toward the goal, he is able to resist those temptations. So my question to you is, what is your purpose? What is the thing that you want to focus on so that when you do, you're excited, you're empowered, you're inspired, you want to do it, and in the doing of it, those temptations just bounce off you. You don't even know you're being tempted. I shared a story, I don't know when it was, Friday, Wednesday or Thursday. I said I was on the ferry. Do you remember the story? I was on the ferry. And I had to go to a very important meeting that required my full mental attention. And I love cinnamon rolls, especially the gooey kind with all the brown sugar in it, and it's really gooey. And they were there on the ferry. Remember that story? And I opened up the glass door, and oh, it smells so good. And then I closed the door. Now, why did I close the door? Do you remember? Because I had something in my mind that I needed to do. And what I needed to do was have an alert mind. And I knew that sugar was not going to help me think as quickly and as alertly as I needed to think. Now, if I wasn't going to that meeting, I would have snapped up that cinnamon roll right off the bat. See, without a sense of purpose, you're going to easily give in to any temptation, any distraction along the way. But when you're focused on a purpose that is born of your talents and your strengths, your gifts, when you have that, then that is one of the components of resisting the bad temptation. Does that make sense? Any comments on that? Are we good? Cool with that? All right, let's go on. Do you see what's happening there? She's looking at that cookie. Is it a cookie? Oh, it's a Danish. I must not eat this. 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 No, I should not eat this. I am deciding not to eat this. And then she eats it. Her willpower is not working well for her, right? Why? Because she is trying to use her prefrontal cortex when she's eaten this before and she's loved it. Now, let us help her out a little bit. And one step in helping her is don't do it that way. Don't focus on the temptation to resist it, because it's not going to work most times. So let's see if we can help her out. This is just the beginning. This is not the whole answer. She needs to ask herself, what foods will fuel my health and happiness? In other words, my purpose, my long-term goals. That's the beginning. It's not always going to work, but that's the beginning of her resisting. She's trying to now think in terms of long-term goals, even if it's just later on this evening or next month. What foods will advance me toward my goal? So that's number one, is have that sense of purpose. Now here's another one. Look at that very, very closely there. Oh, look at that chocolate. Oh, looks so nice. Looks so nice. All right? You know, and then you know if you take that chocolate, it's going to do something inside your brain, inside your body, right? So the strength to resist temptation does not come through focusing on temptation. Overcoming temptation is a byproduct of focusing on something greater. That's the insight. What is the something greater that you've been called to? What is that thing that you want to be good at? What is that thing in your mind, that sense of calling, that purpose that you have? See, if you don't have one, that's okay. Pick up the handout that we passed out on Wednesday night, and that'll help you find your purpose, and that'll change your life for sure and give you 7 extra years of life, statistically speaking. As a matter of fact, focusing your talents on serving others now introduces the second component of resisting temptation. Number one, having a strong purpose. Number two, having other people. So if you use your purpose to help other people and build a sense of community, friendships, marriage, whatever it may be, that's going to be another thing that helps. I'll add to it in a little bit. As a safeguard against temptation, the preoccupation of the mind with good is worth more than unnumbered attempts at self-discipline. Just be preoccupied with the good, with doing some good thing, having a purpose, etc., and that'll be so cool. As a matter of fact, choose the good you will do. Then focus your talents on it. Whatever they may be, find out what they are. Ask others if you don't know what your talents are. They may know what yours are better than you do. As a matter of fact, let your gifts and talents determine what good things to focus on. Self-discipline is not needed when our hearts are engaged in building people up. If you know that you can feel useful, and you feel important, and you feel so useful when you help somebody with something you're good at, then that alone builds up a lot of hormones in your system. Oxytocin, dopamine, and adrenaline even, and although that's more short term. Think of the word dose, D-O-S-E. What does the D stand for? Dopamine. The O, oxytocin, like the happiness hormone, if I could oversimplify. The S, serotonin. You could say serenity hormone, right? There's so much more to it. And then the E, endorphins, another like happiness. So when we use our gifts and talents to help others, we are giving ourselves a dose of strength and happiness, which is the title of this seminar, right? Hope, health, hope, and happiness as we go along. Now, another thing, make your environment support your goals. What do I mean by that? Well, take a look at this particular picture I'm going to show you, but I put that in there just to give us a bit of advanced warning as to what we're going to be focused on in a bit. When we want to resist, we don't use willpower, but when those resistant things happen, when those temptations happen, use that pain and use that craving as a cue to implement a protocol instead of giving in. And I'll talk about that in a bit. But here is the environment that some people are very aware of. Now, what does your refrigerator look like? That becomes our environment. See, is your refrigerator, is your kitchen supporting your long-term health goals? So if it is, then it's reducing the number of tempting cravings that'll come your way. Arrange your food atmosphere in a way that strengthens the 37 trillion cells rather than the 10,000 taste buds. So we arrange our social environment as well, but certainly the food that we eat. Does that make sense? And there she is. She's doing it. She can do it. Why can't we? Right? And then if you're used to going on a route to work, you have to pass by all these temptations, take another route. That's changing your environment. So think in terms of, okay, what is my environment? What in my environment tempts me and I give into it? What is it? Then can you, maybe we can't change it entirely, but can we change it as best we can so that it reduces the number of temptations and craving cues that come our way? Okay? So that's something we could do. Do you want a break? All right, take 5 minutes. Think about it. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you about her. 5-minute break. What time is it right now? So you see the girl on the screen. Now that girl on the screen wants to get switched over. Go ahead, make a switch over there. What do you think is going on with that girl on the screen? She's not looking very healthy, is she? Could you turn up the volume just a little bit? This girl is actually a street addict. And this is the same girl a few months later. What happened to her? Well, she's just going to explain it herself. This is a tweet that she put out when Twitter was Twitter. She says, on the left, me, completely broken. 93 pounds, living on the streets, living in fear, in pain, addicted to meth and heroin, and ready for my life to finally end. I had endocarditis twice from using, and I had a hole in my heart. My mom took that picture when she went to rescue me. And on the right, I took this picture tonight. Didn't care about angles, just wanted to show my happiness. 9 months clean. I fought hard for months in the hospital, survived heart surgery, gained 40 pounds and got a place to live. I have my family and my 2 cats that help me. I posted the before picture a lot, but my story is important. Recovery is possible and it's worth it. You encouraged by that story? I can almost cry at the good news of that young lady. Well, somebody else noticed what she wrote and says, keep it going. We're all addicted to something. The difference is you're beating yours. And he was very encouraged by her story. This is a picture of somebody who I knew that person. That's actually the after picture. Now, just like the girl had a before and after picture, and the before picture was a picture because of a result of addiction, I too have a before picture. And I too have that before picture because of addiction. Not to heroin, not to meth, but to junk food. High sugar, salt, fat, white flour. Loved it. Still do, as a matter of fact. And so what happened? Both those pictures, this one and the girl before it, the same mechanism is happening in the brain. Same thing. For her it was drugs. For me it was food. And now I want to talk a little bit about my discovery. I'm going to read this after I tell a bit of a story, but since you're already reading it anyway, I may as well read it for you and just leave it there. Does anyone know what DSM-5 stands for? The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It's what psychologists and psychiatrists use to diagnose people with whatever mental illness there is. It happens to be the 5th version, the DSM-5. It's a really thick book. Overall, the diagnosis of its substance use disorder is based on a pathological, which means harmful pattern of behaviors related to the use of the substance. I'll talk about this in a bit. Back to my story with my guitar teacher. He said to me, the cigarette. I've never loved or hated something as much in my life as this cigarette. I myself had the same situation with junk food, basically, tasty toxins. Now, I never thought of myself as an addict, but I rethought that based upon something that happened to me a number of years ago. It was on Saturday night, and I was eating a lot of junk food. I had potato chips, ice cream, maybe pizza, whatever it was, just I had a lot of it. And I ate up until late at night, 11 o'clock, maybe 12 o'clock, I don't know. And I woke up in the middle of the night, or was it the next morning, and my stomach was just wrenching in pain. And I knew exactly what caused it. I mean, I know. I mean, you can tell. It's because of what I ate last night. And I said to myself, man, I am never going to do that again. A month later, I'm doing it again. And I'm thinking, I just did this last month. I ate foods which I loved, and yet they're killing me. And this particular time, the second time it happened, I said to myself, and I was holding on to my stomach, never again, never again. And when I said those words, never again, I said it twice. I had a memory of my childhood when I was 10 years old. It was my grandfather. My grandfather lived in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is where I'm from. But my father being in the Air Force, we moved around a fair bit. Lived in France and Germany and other places. And this time we were living in New Brunswick in the base Gagetown, New Brunswick, or Mukto, New Brunswick, near the capital, Fredericton. And we loved to go on vacation to go to Grandma's house in Halifax. Took 6 hours to drive to Halifax. And I love going to visit Grandma. Both my grandmothers lived there. They had husbands, so they were my grandfathers, but I didn't care about them. It was my grandmothers. My grandmothers created the equivalent to Disneyland for me. I'd rather go to my grandma's house than Disneyland. They're so loving. They serve food so nicely. It was just, I just felt the magic going to Grandma's house. One night I was in bed at Grandma's house. They gave me my own room. And it was about 2:30 in the morning, 10 years old. I hear the screaming at nighttime. It wakes me up. It's my grandfather. My grandfather is yelling at my grandmother, my beloved grandmother. My grandfather is yelling and screaming at her. He's angry, and he's using swear words I had never heard before, and a lot of them are sexual. And as a 10-year-old innocent little boy, something you should never hear at that age, I was hearing this awful, violent words. I don't think it was physically violent, but he was verbally awful to my grandmother. And I put the sheets, blankets over my head, and I tried to cover my ears because this was traumatic, hearing this happen. And I can still experience that even now as I think about it. The next morning, my mother comes into the room and ushers me out very quickly. I fall asleep, and next morning, okay, here we are. And then I have 2 brothers and a sister. They're also sleeping. My mother and father, there's 6 of us. So we're all whisked downstairs. There's a basement apartment down there. It was empty, sort of like the storage area now. But we had our breakfast downstairs on a bare table. It felt so weird to eat downstairs when Grandma was upstairs. And Grandma's always cooking breakfast, and she's scurrying around the kitchen, and she's happily doing things for us, and it's so wonderful to be there. But we weren't, what was wrong? Mom, I want to go back upstairs where Grandma is. No, you can't go upstairs. Don't go up there. I want to go up there. And so when my parents were distracted by my siblings, I snuck up there. There's this spiraling staircase that went up there. My father was a carpenter. He built it all himself. And so I get up there, and the very first part of the upstairs there, the main floor, really, was the kitchen. It was all dark. It was eerie. It was all dark. And I kind of walked, almost expecting something, I don't know what. And I get to the where the living room is, like the doorway there, and I go, and I see what looks like a dead man on the floor. And it's my grandfather. Now, he's lying on the floor, and his head is like this, cricked up against the couch. And he's got a really big, fat beer belly. And his shirt is open, and he's got blood and, not blood, but vomit, and just an awful picture. And his hand is down on the floor, and there's a rum bottle, empty, about 4 inches away from his hand. That's the picture that I see. And now I know why my mom and dad says don't go upstairs. Where's my grandmother? I can't see her anywhere. So I sneak back downstairs again and never tell anybody about it. But I now know why. So after we have a very hurried, tasteless breakfast, we go away to my other grandmother's place, and we come back 3 days later. Now my grandfather is sitting on his lazy boy chair. He hasn't shaved in 3 days, but he looks happier. He's sobered up. My grandfather happened to be an alcoholic. And we're all gathered around my grandfather, all 6 of us, and my grandmother, 7 of us. And my grandfather's sitting here, and we're kind of like in a semicircle around him, and I'm sitting kind of like on this side. And I'm looking at him, just in awe, not in a good way, of what's happened to him and to me and what's going on. Then he stops the conversation. He looks directly into my eyes. You could tell there's pain in his eyes. You can tell there's regret in his eyes. He looks at me and he says, never again, never again will I do that. Never again. And I believed him. Because he knew the pain that he caused me and my siblings. I'm the oldest, and so the other ones perhaps, I don't know what they went through, but just knowing that. So we go back home to New Brunswick, and a month later, my mother says, he's done it again. And a month later, again, and again, and again, and again, and then he dies. And so now here I am as a full-grown adult saying the exact same words that my grandfather said, never again, and then he does it again. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, what a coincidence that I should say the very same words that I remember my grandfather saying about alcohol. I'm saying them about tasty toxins, about food. Am I like an alcoholic? Am I? No, I can't be. Well, I have the same patterns. I'm not drinking alcohol, but there's something going on. And so I did some study about it. It took me 2 years. I told my wife, I think I might be an addict. Don't be so foolish. Well, no, the psychology, the physiology, the story of my grandfather and how, do I have maybe the same genes? Maybe it's genetic and it's, there's alcoholism that runs in my family and stuff. Maybe that's what it is. So I began to do some research. I put some of that research in my book. Omit What Is Harmful is the name of a chapter called The Situation. Next chapter, Omit What Is Harmful, The Solution. I want to share with you a little bit of my research. And in 2 years, I had to admit, yes, I am an addict. Not your regular drug street addict. But when I look at the patterns of addiction for alcohol, cocaine, heroin, meth, cigarettes, I have the same patterns, same thing. And so I'm going to read to you what helped me to diagnose myself. Now, I'm not from what I gathered, I'm not a high addict, but I'm a partial addict. That's kind of how I figured it. Number one, lack of self-control. So, do you make a decision to not eat something and then you eat it? Okay, that's lack of self-control, right? Symptoms such as unsuccessful efforts to cut down or stop using, they're talking about drugs here, or alcohol, sometimes due to uncontrollable cravings. And I thought to myself, do I have that? Yes, I do. I have that. That's number one. Number two, social problems. Symptoms such as neglecting major role obligations or relationships at work, school, or home. I said to myself, do I have that? I don't think so. I didn't think so. I don't think so even today. So I would say, no, I don't think I have that. I mean, yes, sometimes I might have neglected some small things, but not major role obligations. So I guess 1 point against and 1 point in favor type of thing. That's what I was doing in my mind as I was reading through this. Risky use. Symptoms such as failure to abstain from using the substance despite the problems it is causing. I just told you the story. Where would you think I land on this one? You're kind of guilty of that. Risky use, and you continue doing it even though you know it's going to hurt you in the long term. Now remember, it took me 2 years to admit to myself that that's really addiction. Because this is normal food that people eat. French fries, sugary desserts. It's just people eat this stuff all the time. So how could that contribute to addiction? When you look at the definition of addiction, now maybe you don't know it's bad for you, so it's fine, but I knew it was bad for me. And yet I still did it. That is another component of addiction. You know it's hurting you, and yet you still do it. Physical dependence, symptoms such as tolerance and withdrawal. That has more to do with this. Symptoms of tolerance and withdrawal. Tolerance is needing more of the substance to achieve the desired effect, or a markedly reduced effect when the usual dose is consumed. How many here can stop at one potato chip? How many need 10? How many need 100? When are you going to stop? Usually I stop when my stomach hurts. That's addiction. Withdrawal is signaled by psychological and or physiological discomfort when the reward is not reached. And so I thought, okay, I'm trying an academic approach to understanding my own soul, my own self, as I was going along. I was really helped by this book, written by Gabor Mate. He's originally from Hungary, but really a resident of Vancouver. He worked with drug addicts on Vancouver's downtown east side. He's written 7 bestseller books, usually on ADHD, addictions, the body-mind connection, things like that. So he wrote this book called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, Close Encounters with Addiction. And he says, and he was an addict as well, but again, a different kind of behavior. My addictive compulsion has caused me to betray my true self, my true values, and disregard my true goals. That's why on opening night we talked about your purpose in life, what you were born to do, what you're good at. And sometimes we make decisions that are short-term that self-sabotage where we want to go in life. He's really good at explaining that. And I really enjoyed reading his book, Dr. Gabor Mate. I'd recommend you look him up on YouTube and just listen to some of the things that he says. He helped me kind of figure out myself a little bit. There are some other books that really helped as well. I wondered, again, how much am I an addict? And if I'm an addict, if I'm like an alcoholic, then what do alcoholics do to get over alcoholism? I thought that might be the approach that I need. How many have ever heard of ACEs? Not the deck of cards, but ACE, Adverse Childhood Experiences. ACEs. This is absolutely profound. Stress, environment, and beliefs contribute to it, but I need to share this book with you. This is a lady, Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. She was once the Surgeon General for California. She worked in San Francisco, I believe. She's not retired, but she's left that particular job. She wrote the book called The Deepest Well, Healing Long-Term Effects of Childhood Adversity. Now, why would I get into childhood stuff? Childhood adversity. Well, she really, really helped me understand myself a lot better. When you talk about adverse childhood experiences and addiction, you begin to realize the cause and effect relationships between things that happen to us in childhood and our behaviors in adulthood. And may I put this up on the screen? Here's what they have found, and I was blown away by the book and by the studies that were done on this. Here's that poor little kid having some adverse childhood experiences, and they measured 10 of them. There's maybe a few more, but they measured 10 in the studies about 20 years ago. And the book is based on those studies. If a child, especially even in the womb or at 1 year old, 2 years old, the younger, the worser, you could say, if they have an adverse childhood experience. Physical abuse, physical neglect, household member who suffered from mental health issue, sexual abuse, so all these are numbers, right? So that's the fourth one. Loss of parent due to death, divorce, or abandonment. Emotional abuse, emotional neglect. Like you want love, but you can't get it. No one's abusing you, no one's hurting you, but you're not getting love. Household member addicted to illegal drugs or alcohol. Household member who was incarcerated, went to jail, and witnessing domestic violence against the mother. They counted for the adults that they studied, they asked, how many of these experiences did you have as children? Now, some of the results were this. I will read what's on this screen, even though it's small. I need to because it's so important. I'm going to read on the left side, adverse childhood experiences in the small words. I'll read them for you. Traumatic events that can have negative lasting effects on health and well-being. There is a very strong positive correlation between the number of adverse childhood experiences and the amount of illness and sickness and addictions that we have as adults. Abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Household challenges, domestic violence, substance abuse in the house, mental illness, parental separation, divorce, incarcerated parent. People with 6 of those ACEs, 6 of those experiences, 20 years earlier, can die 20 years earlier than those who have none. So sometimes when people die at a younger age than, say, 80, it may be because there's contributions of childhood experiences that created the decision-making process which resulted in harmful behaviors, which caused them to die younger. Next one here. 1/8 of the population has more than 4 of those adverse childhood experiences. So ACEs, we'll call them ACEs now. So if you have more than 4 of those childhood experiences, then you're more likely to have things like diabetes, heart disease, cancers, depression, and addictions of all kinds. You're more likely. And they've measured this on a graph. They measured it. 4 or more of them, 3 times the level of lung disease and adult smoking, 14 times the number of suicide attempts, 11 times the level of intravenous drug use, 4 times as likely to have begun intercourse by 15, twice as likely to increase your level of risk of liver disease. Quote in the middle, adverse childhood experiences are the single greatest unaddressed public health threat facing our nation today. This is Dr. Robert Block, former president of the American Academy of Pediatrics. So I'm reading this, and I thought back on my childhood. I don't remember a lot of abuse, really. There's dysfunction for sure. I don't know that I rank high on this stuff, but I have some. And so as I'm counseling and working with others, I recognize that there's abuse and these terrible things that go on so much worse than I ever went through myself. But it really, really helped me to understand what I was going through. Now, I'd also recommend a book written by, of all people, Oprah Winfrey, who wrote a book with Dr. Perry. I forget his first name, Dr. Perry. Pardon? Have you read this book? Okay. So, and I'll show it in a bit. But Dr. Gabor Mate is very famous for saying about drug addicts and people who make these, silly decisions to basically hurt themselves by what they eat and drink and inject. And they get accused by other adults by saying, how come you're making those stupid decisions? What's wrong with you? Dr. Gabor Mate says, don't ask the question, what's wrong with you? Instead ask, what happened to you? What happened to you? Because what happened to you created in your life a need for protective behaviors which became maladaptive as you grew older. And that generated addictions. There's more to it. I won't get into all the details, but I will talk a little bit. Just let me go through some slides here and kind of add to it. I read another book called Atomic Habits. Famous book. Have you read it, heard about it before? Atomic Habits. It's sold at least 4 or 5 million already. It's kind of like the other book, The Power of Habit, but only more. I was blown away by the statement he made. You do not rise to the level of your goals. I thought, that's terrible. I have goals, I have purposes, and I don't rise to the level of my goals I want to. Strategic planning, you make goals, you check these things off. And then he says, you fall to the level of your systems. That's your systems of habits he's talking about. So if you want to reach those goals in life, those good things, that's strong, athletic, healthy, reducing your heart disease risk, all that kind of stuff, it's not so much having a goal that counts. It's having habits daily that count. And it's those habits that determine whether we even reach that goal in the first place. So I thought to myself, well, I want to have good habits. And he helps me to understand how to make them. What new habits could you attach to your current routines? For more ideas, fill in the blanks. So take a look. It's just some ideas. Every time I take a shower, I will. This is called habit stacking. So there's something you're already doing this habitually. Maybe take a shower every day. So since you do that habitually every day anyway, why not just add some good habit after that? So say, every time I do this thing, I'll then add that good habit to it. And that thing that you do is a reminder, a cue, to do that good habit. Every time I come home from work, I will take a drink of water, something like that. Every time I get up out of bed, I'll expose my eyes to the sunlight, and that's good for many things. And so this is one way we can do it. Now, what does this represent? As you take a look at that, you can probably guess what that is, can you? That's neurons in the brain. Close up. That's one neuron, that's another one. And when we do anything at all, or think anything at all, an electrical current is sent down the neuron. A neuron is a cell. But a cell we normally think of as something sort of roundish. Let's stretch that cell out, make it long. Some cells like that are actually 2 feet long. That's like one cell. It's a neuron. It's a nerve in the nervous system. And so the idea is that the message to do something is a message of electrons, forget that. It is electrical, but it's so more complicated than I can explain. But it's an electrical signal that goes down. But every time it gets to the end of the neuron, there's a gap. And that gap is called what? Some of you might know. A synapse. It's a gap. Everything happens in the gap. When you take drug medications, it's to influence what's in that gap, in the synapse. Now, what happens is, if I can go, here's a sort of like a schematic diagram. The electrical signal of the behavior turns into a chemical signal, and then turn back into electrical again. And so this is like they call neurotransmitters as they go by. It's got dopamine or oxytocin, all that kind of stuff. And take a look at this. These are receptors. And so when the electrical signal gets transferred into a molecule, which is called a neurotransmitter, and it goes through, there needs to be enough receptors to receive those molecules. Problem is, the dopamine receptors of people who are susceptible to addiction, whether it's food addiction, drugs, alcohol, behaviors, gambling, pornography, just addictions. The people who've been studied with those addictions have fewer dopamine receptors on the end of the neurons. What happened? When they were children, 1-year-old, 6 months old, 3 years old, little children, in the womb even, something happened to them that caused them to have a need that was not fulfilled. A need for love, a need for protection, a need for positive, activities and stuff, and it wasn't fulfilled. And that affected the development of their brain. So the dopamine receptors, there weren't enough of them. And so when there's not enough dopamine receptors, you have these molecules hanging out here, and they're not getting over there, so they have to go back. That's called reuptake. And some of the drugs that we get inhibit the reuptake. I won't get into all that kind of stuff. But the whole point here is not enough dopamine receptors. When there isn't enough, that means in order to get the signal across, you need to overuse the receptors that are there. And they get worn out. When we overuse the receptors that are there and we don't get the message across, we feel that as something we might call dissatisfaction. But that's the mechanics in the brain. We feel that as emptiness. We feel that as a craving for something we don't have. And that's because there's a dearth of dopamine receptors. And so, what could I say to the addict who's making those unwise decisions in self-sabotaging themselves? What could I say? It's not your fault. Something happened to you when you were young. Yes, you make the decision. You're still responsible. I don't want to absolve you of responsibility. But we can know what the solution is when we better understand what the cause is. What caused that dearth of dopamine receptors? Failure to have healthy connections. Social connections. That's why the first L of full power is loveify your life. Healthy connections increase our power, increase our health. That's why our social connections are so important. So on Thursday night, I had to talk about that, the connections that we have. Here's a normal brain. We're now going to put 3 brains there. Sugar and flour deplete dopamine receptors. When sugar and flour deplete dopamine receptors, that increases our cravings, decreases our willpower, makes us eat things that are junk for our bodies. Now, notice that right there and the other one. Okay, we're looking at the thickness. When the brain has neurons and they're interconnected a lot, really connected and thick, that's healthy. Now watch this. Whoops, go back. The brain on cocaine, notice the same area? Not healthy, because there's not as much there. You see that? The brain of an obese person, same as a cocaine person. And so we're noticing that food, tasty toxins, has the same effect in the brain as does cocaine. And some studies have been done on rats, and rats actually prefer sugar to cocaine. Sugar, if sugar were a character in a movie, sugar would be really good looking, smile at you sweetly, draw you in, and then kill you. That's what the character would do in the movie. That's what sugar does. Tastes great. It kills us. So Gabor Mate wrote another book called The Myth of Normal. He says, we have this idea that what is normal is also healthy and natural. You go to your doctor, you say, am I normal? Don't ask your doctor, are you normal? The better question is, am I healthy? I don't want to be normal. Normal people die too young. Normal people get heart attacks, cancer, and all kinds of diseases. Normal people do this. We can reduce our risk. We can't reduce it to 0 because we just live in the world we live in. But we can reduce the risk. And when we get it, whatever it is, we can reverse it through, like what Robert was telling us, that story that he told about himself. And I'm saying, says Gabor Mate, in this culture, the norm is neither healthy nor natural. The norm is what's making us sick. Don't try to fit into society. It's going to kill us. It's going to make us sick. Look at the healthy stuff. Look at the natural things. We talk about illness of the body and mind as abnormalities. I'm saying that illness in this society, given the conditions, is normal response to an abnormal circumstance. In other words, we are built for love and strength and purpose. We're built for this. And when we don't get it, that's when we go abnormal. That's when we go abnormal, when we think about it. So addictions arise from thwarted love. When we don't have the connections that we need as a child. As a child, when we feel like we're not protected. Whether it's abuse or neglect, whatever it is, we don't feel protected. that affects the dopamine receptors in our brain. That's a thwarting, that's a not getting the love that we legitimately need. Addictions arise from that. So if that's the cause, what's the solution? Lovify your life. Find ways to make connections. Find ways to know what your purpose is in life. Find ways to do that. And I'm going to skip this part because it's getting a little late. Have you ever noticed that non-addictive foods are designed by nature, but addictive foods are designed by people? Notice that? Have you ever heard of Broccoli's Anonymous? No? You know, you've heard of Alcoholics Anonymous, even Narcotics Anonymous, and Overeaters Anonymous. But you're not going to get Apples Anonymous. Why? Because food that comes from nature is not addictive. It's only food that's been extracted from nature, mixed with something else in a manufacturer plant, and then packaged with yellow and orange and nice big smiley faces on the packaging and crinkly bags and stuff. That's what's addictive. That was made by a human being in a manufacturer. What nature makes is not addictive, but what man makes is addictive. So what can we say to the addict? What can we say to the addictive-like behaviors? What can we say to the alcoholic or overeater? We can start by saying it's not your fault. Still responsible. I don't want to absolve of responsibility. But when we know the cause, then we can better understand the solution. Your addiction is not the problem, it's your attempt to solve the problem. And so you can resist temptation is a byproduct of good habits. The good habits are a byproduct of the FULL, of full power. Find your purpose. Unleash your spirituality. Livify your life and have a plan. Launch your plan. This is the book. I recommend it to you. It's a short book, easy book. Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. So why Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey? That's why. Echoing Mate, it's not what's wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. It's what happened to you in the past that caused you to make those decisions to fulfill the cravings that were caused by dearth of dopamine receptors. There's more to it than that. I'm oversimplifying, but this is very, very important. What would I say to my granddad? I'll end with this little bit. If I could have my granddad back and talk to him after learning this stuff and recognizing that he died as an alcoholic, here's what I might say. If he would be, academic enough to listen to the medical jargon and whatnot. Granddad, I know you want to stop drinking. I can see how you can see how it hurts us. And I know you don't want to hurt us because you say never again. I want you to know that your addiction is not the main problem, it's your attempt to solve the problem. The problem is the diminished dopamine receptors in your brain, Granddad. With fewer dopamine receptors, less dopamine gets through to the next segment of your neural pathways. You feel this as dissatisfaction. And it creates a want for more dopamine, sometimes called the pleasure hormone, just to get the same level of satisfaction as other people that have a normal amount of dopamine receptors. So to address this dissatisfaction, Grandpa, this emptiness, you look to alcohol, just as other people look to drugs or stimulating food or risky behavior. It's not your fault, even though you hurt so many people. You want the same amount of dopamine as anyone else. It's natural. But you are stuck with fewer dopamine receptors to do all the work, and they're overloaded. It's like 10 men on the loading dock who are forced to do the work of 12 because 2 of them were let go. And now the same work needs to get done, but they're overworked. They're overstimulated, trying to do the work of more. This is what's happening in your brain. This overwork has a long-term effect of weakening them, the dopamine receptors, which means they're less able to convert dopamine into the electrical signal to pass down the neuron, which depletes your willpower. It's not in there, but it's true. Which means you have to stimulate them even more to get the same effect. That's called tolerance in the jargon. addiction, so addiction develops. Those who have the healthy number of receptors don't need to overstimulate because there's enough receptors to receive the dopamine and pass it on down to the other end of the neuron, allowing it to travel the brain circuit so you can make the decision to do good. But for you, Granddad, one reason you may have fewer dopamine receptors is that you experienced emotional disconnectedness in your early childhood. I called up my mother. I said, Mom, I'm reading about addictions right now. And you know your dad, my granddad, is an alcoholic. Yeah, I know. What was his childhood like, Mom? And my mother explained to me, I think I have it written here. It could have been abuse or it could have been inattention from a stressed out mother trying her best. I have it in my book, but it's not here. I found out that my grandfather was the son of an alcoholic, and his mother was an overworked mother because of the alcoholic father he had, and she died when my grandfather was only 9 years old. The father of my grandfather didn't want to take care of him. So what is that a 9-year-old boy going to think? He was put in an orphanage, and then he ran away from the orphanage at age 10. He's on his own at age 10. The cool thing to do when you're a young teenager, get into drugs, get into alcohol, and that's what he did. So then he marries my grandmother, and on it goes. And so I'm talking to my grandfather in my imagination. Whatever it was, you had emotional needs that went unmet, Granddad. This drove you to compensate for those unmet needs. You did this by finding coping mechanism which became maladaptive as you grew up, and that is not your fault. The answer is that you need new dopamine receptors. New neural pathways form as you develop new habits. Old neural pathways will still be there, but more analogous to a dried up riverbed. Let the old pathways dry up and start new ones. How? Come with me to the next chapter of your life and in the book. And I'll show you some things I've learned. And I've shared some of those things already, so you don't need the book. If you have a sense of purpose that drives you, if you have a connection with people who love you and you feel the love, if you have a spiritual life that inspires you, if you have a plan that when you have that craving, that temptation, you have a plan, a protocol of what to put into effect, and you change your environment to match your long-term goals. All these things and more will help with that. It's time to stop, isn't it? What time is it right now? No! All right, time to stop. So I've talked about a heavy subject. This is a heavy subject. But when we talk about health and happiness and hope, this inevitably has to be addressed. It has to be addressed. So yes, we need to eat our carrots, eat our broccoli, and do all the good stuff. But when we don't want to, understand where it comes from, or at least a major source of it, so that we can deal with it with the right principles. I'm going to turn now over to, I guess, Wesley, you're our host today, so thank you.
Wow. I think it was worth going a little bit over time this evening for the information to receive. Did you like it? Do you appreciate it? Very, very well researched and scientifically proven, right? Proved. Thank you so much, Dr. Brake. We'd like to say a big word of appreciation for your sacrificing your time with your dear wife and coming from beautiful Vancouver Island to come to Lower Mainland, where you lived for a good period of your life in Mission and Abbotsford and so forth, but you're coming back to us. We appreciate, and we like to say a big word of appreciation, a big word of thank you to you, and we'll be in touch. Okay, I would like to invite everyone to give another round of applause for Pastor Brake and a show of appreciation. And I had a card signed at home. Oh, the card will come. Rushing. He came from Silver Hills, so we have hardly any time to eat and come. I'd like to thank you so much for coming. Tomorrow evening is going to be the presenter is going to be Rom Lynch, the same one that presented a beautiful message, had a brief presentation yesterday. It's going to be what is hydrotherapy. You cannot afford to miss it. 7 o'clock tomorrow. I'd like to invite you to stand, and I'd like to close with a prayer. And there are healthy, what do you call, refreshments and finger foods, nice ones, very healthy. Thank you, Father, for allowing us to be here today, and thank you for Pastor Brake, Dr. Brake's presentation, the stimulus that he gave us, the encouragement to make right decisions. I pray that you bless him and June, keep them all safe and sound, and each one of us, as we go different ways today, to this evening, we pray for your blessing and your guidance, and continue to be with us as we're on this journey to learn how to be healthier, have more hope, and to have more happiness in our lives. In Jesus' precious name I pray, a blessing upon each one of us. Amen. God bless you. Some snacks, that's the word I was looking for. Healthy snacks and refreshments. Thank you so much for coming. See you tomorrow evening.